Alright you guys, today I'm making a Mortal Kombat 1 tier list regarding both the main fighters and cameos, with Quan being the latest addition to the roster. There are a few things I am basing my tier list on, and that is 1. The character's strengths and weaknesses in neutral, 2. Their offense, defense, and damage overall, and 3. The compatibility between the main fighters and cameos. And before we start, I want to preface this by saying this whole thing is my opinion and not the objective truth. Please don't take tier lists to heart. They are meant to give a general consensus of how players feel about the game. If you enjoy playing a certain character, then play them despite what any tier list says. Alright, let's get into it. So first off, we have Liu Kang, easily one of the strongest characters in the game right now. He has arguably the best strike throw mix in the game with his forward 4 string, while at the same time having annoyingly good zoning. And what makes his strike throw game so strong is the fact that he can get a full combo off a throw with the right cameo, such as Lao or Motaro. Also, his forward 4 is double hitting, meaning he can deny your wake up armor attack pretty consistently on Oki. He also has a 6 frame standing jab, which is really good for him. So overall, Liu Kang is the Shoto of this game, and I am giving him an S+ ranking. Alright, next we have Smoke, or the King of Smoke as Sindel would say. I think Smoke is an interesting one. He has pretty solid mix and pressure up close with his cancels, but I feel like he has little trouble against zoning given that he doesn't have a standard projectile himself. Now he does have ways around it with his teleports and phasing. His damage overall is really good, and I feel like he pairs well with many cameos like Lao, Striker, Sector, cameos that will allow him to get in on the opponent easier. And when he is in, his offense can get pretty overwhelming, so far my feelings for him are an S. Alright, next we have Rain. I don't have as much experience against Rain as I do Smoke, but I would label Rain as a very solid full to mid-screen character. He does really well at controlling space and forcing the opponent to come to him with his anti-zoning bubble and multiple projectiles. He also has tricky setups and pressure with his portals that I've only seen a few Rains utilize in my online matches. A lot of it felt a little gimmicky, but it was interesting to face nonetheless. Rain also has a really good armor move that comes out fast and is hard for some characters to punish. His damage overall is solid, and he has some of the best pokes in the game. I'm placing Rain in S for now. Okay, we have Li Mei next. Not the most popular of the bunch, but I think people are sleeping on her big time. She has insanely high damage potential, especially when paired with Scorpion cameo. Those two are meant for each other, man, like peanut butter and jelly. She has her lantern, which forces you to stay grounded while it's on the screen. She also has an almost instant overhead move that can be comboed off of with some meter spent, resulting in big damage. She has what I believe is a 7 frame move too, where she flip kicks the shit out of you. Meaning she can full punish you for trying to poke her. So overall, underrated in my opinion, and I wish more people played her. So I'm placing her in S tier. Alright, next we have Tanya, who will put it on ya. I don't know how to feel about this character. Like, one, she has one of the best mid-hitting strings in the game. You know the one I'm talking about. Her forward 2, I believe. It covers a lot of space, has good startup frames, and I always underestimate the range she has with it. And the full string is very easy to hit confirm off of. She also has her long range standing 3 that will catch you backdashing. She kind of forces you to be more cautious with your movement. Her other strings aren't super terrible either, like the low starter string. She also has a really good armor move that can be made safe on block with the right cameo like Goro. Overall, I don't think this character is bad, but she is very bare bones in my opinion. Her game plan is very simple and straightforward, but personally I feel like she's missing a string or a special move. I am placing her in A+. Alright, next we have Baraka. They hit my boy hard with the nerfs, I can't lie. His damage is lower, his walking speed is lower, but he isn't entirely unplayable. He still has really good buttons that reach from afar. He plays from that annoying range that most characters can't contest with pokes, and he has a few ways to skip neutral when paired with the right cameo. Overall, not too much to say about him, so I'm placing him in A+ as well. Okay, next is Geras. Geras is both scary and annoying to fight, especially when he gets his hourglasses set up. He becomes a bit of a mini boss with his 1-bar breaker and full screen time stop that he can use to react to anything you do and full punish you for it. He pretty much forces you to come to him when these things fall into place. He has really good ways to annoy you, like his overhead, his pokes and sweeps, and projectile that covers a lot of space. And on top of that, his damage is really good, so I'm placing Geras in S tier. Okay, my boy Reptile. Shout out to NRS for giving him a glow up this game. Now he looks like an e-boy. Anyways, I think Reptile has some pretty standard offense, but not in a bad way necessarily. He has his low starter that reaches insanely far. I swear sometimes I don't even feel like I should be getting hit by it when it does. There's unfortunately a lot of gaps in his offense that can be taken advantage of easily by the opponent. Like during his low starter string. His force balls can be annoying to deal with in neutral considering how much space they cover, but they're not impossible to deal with. He has pretty solid damage overall, and with that I think I'm going to place him in A+ as well. Alright, now we have Ashrah. This character has a lot of good things going for her, especially in neutral. She has many long reaching normals. She has an overhead starter that also reaches pretty far. She's got a projectile that is hard to avoid and is super plus on block. I think her best cameo has got to be Serena. With Serena, she has even more projectiles to pester you with and force you to play her game. To top it all off, her damage is extremely high. Her fatal blow does a ton of damage and doesn't scale much at the end of combos. You know, sometimes it feels like one string into fatal blow is a guaranteed 50% damage every time. Overall, I think she's really good and I'm placing her at S+. So for Havik, I don't have too much experience against him, so I'm leaving him for later. Alright, General Shao, who I still call Shao Kahn sometimes to this day because, you know, that's what we've been calling him for ages. But anyways, I think Shao is solid and a bit of an underrated pick. The reason I'm placing him a bit lower is I feel like he struggles against zoning, but he has great pressure up close and very good damage. With the hammer, he has good range, and he also has one of the best jump-ins in the game. He can be very hard to anti-air. Without the hammer, I want to say he's even stronger. He gains some very strong offense and overhead low mix up close. So with all of that, I'm placing him in A+ tier. Okay, next we have Sub-Zero. Before anything, I want to say I have mad respect for the players who have stuck with Sub-Zero through these times. Okay, the reason I'm placing him so low on my list is because of the things he relies on to do damage to you, and I feel like most of those things require you to make the same mistake over and over. You know, such as touching an ice clone. Like, I know you're gonna down 4 into ice clone or down 1 into ice clone for the 10th time. You know, I'm not falling for it again. Other times you will take damage is getting hit by his ice projectile that freezes you. I'm gonna be honest, the only time I've ever gotten hit by those was due to me getting impatient. He also has his overhead low mix-up where the full overhead string is unsafe and the full low string has a gap that can be armored out of. He also has his dive kick, which isn't too bad, but a bit risky to use, you know, considering up block exists in this game. So I think a character like this forces the player to take unnecessary risks in order to do standard damage, especially at a high level. So I'm placing Sub at B+. Okay, finally we get to the Queen Sindel. I feel like the community's opinion on her has fluctuated so much since the release of the game. Like, I remember during the first few weeks, people were saying, oh, Sindel is weak, Sindel has low damage, her mids are so slow. And then during the last few months, I hear Sindel is so brain dead, she's broken, you know, Sindel Lao is busted. Anyways, I'm not going to say too much. I think Sindel has strong zoning and space control with the moveset she has in this game. Her forward one string where she hits you with her hair is really strong, easy to hit confirm and covers a lot of space. She can manipulate her air movement with levitate, which can be tricky for certain characters to deal with. She pairs well with many cameos like Kung Lao, Serena, and Sub-Zero. Although because the way her combo routing works, her damage tends to scale pretty hard. Her offense up close isn't the best considering her strengths lie at mid to full screen. So overall, I'm placing Sindel at S tier. Okay, next we have Scorpion. I'm gonna be honest, y'all, I don't think this character is amazing, but he's still got some good things going for him. Scorpion has pretty decent range on his normals and specials. For example, he has a standing 2, which covers a lot of space and is good for checking the opponent. Similar to Shao's standing 2, but a little worse. He has his low starter that has insanely long range and can be converted into a full combo with the right cameo. And then he has his spear and teleport, which are pretty much Scorpion's legacy moves. His overall game plan in Mortal Kombat 1 is very straightforward. I feel his strengths lie at mid to full screen. When you're fighting Scorpion, you do have to be careful with your movement because you're always at risk of getting speared, although I personally think he's very one-dimensional and neutral. His damage overall is solid, and you tend to see him paired with Serena and Scorpion cameos. With all of this, I'm placing him just above Sub-Zero at A tier. Alright, we have Kitana up next, the queen of zoning and space control. I personally think she has the best, if not second best zoning in the game. She has a variety of projectiles, some that leave her extremely plus. She has crazy good range on a lot of her normals. She has an advancing mid that reaches very far and is easy to hit confirm. And on top of that, her damage is very high. She can consistently get around 40% meterless with the right cameo like Scorpion or Jax. In the corner, her combos do even more damage, potentially reaching 50% with resources to spare. This is a character that can be very tedious to approach in neutral and requires a lot of patience to win against. I personally think she does what Sindel wants to do, but just a little better. And for that, I am placing her in S tier. Okay, Mr. Johnny Cage, the character I face in 60% of my online matches, and that's not just a coincidence. Johnny is a very strong character with overwhelming offense. I personally believe he has the best rushdown pressure in the game, even more so than Smoke. He has good movement and an arsenal of plus on block strings with solid mix. He doesn't have a projectile himself, so he struggles just a bit with zoning, but his strong offense makes up for it. His shadow kick covers a lot of space and forces you to be cautious of whiffing a button even from very long ranges. His damage isn't as high as some, and you typically see him paired with Kung Lao, Serena, or Striker. But overall, I think he's one of the top fighters in the game right now, and I'm placing him at S+. Alright, moving on to the blind warrior Kenshi. Honestly, Kenshi is one of my favorite characters in the franchise as a whole. I love his design in this game, and I think his moveset is great. Kenshi is a very snowbally puppet character with high damage potential once he locks you down with his ghost, Sento. Kenshi has a lot of range on his normals that make it hard to contest him while you're on defense. Once he opens you up and gets Sento out on Oki, it's time to say a prayer and guess for your life. Literally. With Sento, his meterless damage is through the roof, and he can consistently get over 40%. If you do manage to get out of his offense during Sento's stance, Kenshi is left with a limited moveset, and that's your time to make a move. You typically see Kenshi paired with Sub-Zero cameo, which allows him to get Sento out during a combo. I think he struggles just a bit against zoning and keep away characters, but overall I think he's very strong, so I'm placing him at S tier. Next up is Kung Lao. I would label Kung Lao as a rushdown character with very good damage. He has one of the best armor moves in the game, which is only -7 I believe, and cannot be punished by a majority of the cast. You typically see him paired with Goro, which gives him advantage after the armor move is blocked, or a combo if it lands. Because he has this safe armor move, playing neutral against him requires a lot of patience. His dive kick is very fast, allowing him to traverse the stage with speed and add layers to his offensive rushdown. His hat toss projectile can be altered to cover different angles. The normal version of his hat toss gives him enough frame advantage on hit to close the space between him and the opponent. This is useful against zoners. Overall, my feelings for Kung Lao are an S tier. Okay, next we have Mileena. Mileena is an interesting one. I go back and forth a lot on where she would place in a tier list. She isn't a zoner, but I wouldn't necessarily label her as a rushdown either. Her signature ball roll is very strong and useful for whiff punishing opponents from far ranges. It can even be used to low profile some projectiles. Her damage is higher than average, especially with certain cameos like Scorpion. Her standing one has a lot of range too, and is great for checking the opponent and anti-airing. There's unfortunately gaps in her offense that can be taken advantage of consistently with practice. I feel her strengths revolve around her playing keep away, not necessarily at full screen, but at mid screen, where she can pester you with size and capitalize on your mistakes in neutral, but she has a few ways to skip neutral, like with her teleport from full screen followed by a cameo like Sector. I feel like she does well against zoners in general. With all of this said, I'm placing Mileena at S tier. Alright, next is Raiden. Even despite the damage nerf he received a little while back, I still think Raiden is extremely strong and one of the most Unga characters in the game. And if you do not know what I mean by Unga, I mean his game plan is so simple yet so strong at any level of play. It doesn't require much thinking to execute. His game plan consists of flying across the screen with Superman dive, zoning, teleporting down 1 or down 4 into his electricity bubble, followed by an ambush cameo, and rinse and repeat. It can be very difficult for some characters to deal with Raiden's shenanigans. Overall, I don't have too much more to say about Raiden, so with that, I'm placing him in S+. Okay, next up is none other than Nitara. Nitara, despite the shitty voice acting, has one of the most interesting movesets in my opinion. She has the ability to alter her movement in the air in any direction. Her erratic movements can seem very fast and overwhelming, especially to those unfamiliar with the matchup. When facing Nitara, it can seem near impossible to catch her at times. She usually wants to attack you from above, whether that's with her dive kick, a downward air dash attack, or her overhead starter string. She has a sweep that is double hitting and can be special cancelled before the second hit. This can be utilized in her rush down pressure. She also received buffs a little while back to her lifesteal move, which makes up for her low health that she has. On top of it all, her damage is higher than average. Her defense isn't the greatest. Her armor move is a high, meaning it can be ducked or low profiled, and her pokes and buttons in general are a bit stubby. Overall, I think she's underrated and I'm placing her at S tier. Next we have Reiko. He's a grappler with arguably the best projectile in the game. He does well at full screen, forcing you to come to him with his projectiles that cover a lot of space. Once he's conditioned you to neutral duck his throwing stars, he has a slide that can lead to a full combo, as well as normal buttons with a lot of range. At close range, he has very strong pokes that have both good range and pushback. He also has a command grab that can lead into a combo with the right cameo. Overall, he isn't very combo execution heavy, but he has both the damage and screen control to make up for it. I typically see Reiko being run with Darius or Tremor for their ambush moves, and with that I am placing Reiko in S tier. Alright, we have Omni-Man next. I personally think Omni-Man is so much fun to play as. His moveset is very simple and easy to understand. I believe his strengths lie at mid to close range, although I think he does fine at full screen against zoners. He has many ways to avoid projectiles with his stance move. While in it, he dodges projectiles entirely, or when pressing a button, he can either teleport or attack the opponent from multiple directions. His normals are really good, including his advancing mid that covers a lot of space and great for catching people backdashing. A lot of his strings have good frame advantage and are easy to hit confirm off of. His damage is much higher than average, and he has a very fast forward advancing armor move. With all of that said, I am placing Omni-Man in S tier. Okay, the three final characters that we have left are Shang, Havik, and Quan. These are the characters I probably have the least experience fighting against at the moment, but despite that, I will still place them on the tier list just to make it complete. So for my personal experience, I am placing Havik at A+, Shang in S tier, and Quan also in S tier. Okay, you guys, I've made some final adjustments to my tier list. I think this would be my final tier list for this current patch. This is how I feel about the game so far. I've moved Tanya down. I don't know. This is just how I feel about her. I've also moved Mileena down one, but yeah, this is the final tier list. Alright, you guys, that concludes my tier list for Mortal Kombat 1. Again, this is all just my personal take on the game and is not meant to be taken seriously. I enjoyed making this video for you guys and look forward to expanding my content and sharing it with you. I can't wait for crossplay to come out so I'll be able to face the Xbox and PC players. Also, I can't wait for Chameleon, the next cameo. She looks very interesting. Alright, you guys, leave a like if you enjoyed the video and sub if you're new and want to see more like this. I appreciate the support from you all. Later, guys.